Hello and welcome to Opening the Gates to More Listings for Estate Agents with me, Simon Gates. I'm delighted to be rejoined today by Mr. Simon Ledbetter. Simon, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me, Simon. I hope you're well.
I'm very well, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to have you back because we're going to be absolutely geeking out on your Voice of the Agent 2024 survey. Obviously, I geeked out massively on the 2023 report. So I couldn't wait to get my hands on 2024 and dive deep into the data. So before I start asking you some questions on it, um, can you just explain to anyone watching or listening who has not already read it or don't know anything about it, what is the Voice of the Agent survey?
Yeah, really happily. So I used to work in financial services, and everyone has strong opinions, and I work with a lot of IFAs. So basically, I did a survey every year from like 2011 to 2017 on what IFAs actually thought about specific things. Got a fantastic response and incredible amount of insight. So coming into property, I kept thinking I need to do this within property, but never really found the opportunity. But when I struck out on my own, I thought, you know what? There's no better time to do this because, I'm not an estate agent. I'm not a letting agent. I've worked with lots and lots of brilliant estate and letting agents, and I know what they think. But I want to get a really good understanding of what everyone thinks about the key moving forces in the industry. So we did the survey as like an experiment last year, almost as a one-off to see what happened. We got an incredible response, 553 responses, which blew my mind. And it's a long survey. The last one was shorter. This year it took 49 minutes on average to complete. So these are pretty determined individuals. But they did it, and we got 841. We added some questions this year, we got a lot more detail. We broke out the lettings section. And what it meant is now we all know what the pundits think,
Hmm.
the loud mouths like me who express strong opinions. But now we know what our peers really think. And actually, this one was really interesting because of what's my work with agents together, and now the Property Mark Trust as an ambassador. We added in a section about mental health and discrimination, and those stats were scary. But we can get into that if you want to later. But there's just loads of really good value. And to be honest with you, it's my Bible every year now. I'll do this every single year. I have a Bible I can refer to, and if someone has a strong opinion, I can go, well, here's the facts.
Well, I was actually with David Lindley, who we obviously
Yeah.
both know well, and the guys and girls at By Design yesterday. And I think there was a couple of questions that were asked in the room, and it was like I was saying, well, actually, if you haven't already read the report, go and read it. Some of the questions they're asking, it's like there's actually some really interesting data behind that in the report. And one of the things we'll come on to it later, but there was a conversation in the room about fee. And obviously,
Mhm.
you've got certain sellers who are very much want the cheapest fee, and then there are others who want the very best value for money, and that might actually be a higher fee because they get more for it. And we'll come on to that later on the fee side of things. But where I want to start, and I apologize in advance if any of the kind of language I use is not the correct way. You'll be the one to correct me on it. But in the
Oh, that
in the report, um, it said the average person can recall three agents, and
yes,
typically in an average sort of patch, an agent's competing against 12 other agents, correct?
that's absolutely spot on. Yeah. And that is what's really good about that. That's consistent year to year.
Okay.
So it was a bit higher last year, actually, about 3.8, 3.9. But it's around about three is what people are competing, what's the names that a member of the public can actually recall. The scary one is like a third can't recall any.
Yeah. And I
So
think,
we live in this industry. We think everyone must know their local estate agents, but people aren't in this market.
but right, so I completely agree with you on that. And I think that is the real like key point is estate agents are in this market, the consumer is not. And I think, like you said, you're not an agent. You've now worked in this industry for 8 years, is it roughly?
8 years, literally a week ago today.
Done my research. And and I try and say to agents myself is that, of course they're going to be able to name the 12 other agents in their patch because it's their market. But if you then say to that agent, name me, and it might be a bit different if they do a lot of lettings, but if you then go, name me three plumbers, 3 electricians, name me 3 dog groomers, name me 3 barbers. I'll go, well, I can't. Exactly, it's not your market. So again, we'll get onto it later, but it will show the importance of marketing. But I think when you get some agents who say, oh, there's so much competition in my patch, everyone overvalues and everyone undercuts on fee. There's undercutters on fees, there's overvaluers on price, and there's competition no matter where you go.
So, yeah, and ultimately, a good rule of thumb is if everyone's competing with around about, let's make the maths really simple. Let's say it's 10, not 12. Because that means we've got a really simple mathematical equation to take. If you've got a calculator, do it divided by 12. But if you've got 10 competitors and you've got below 10% market share, you are doing less well than you should. If you've got above 10% market share, you're doing better than you should, because with 10 competitors in the world being completely fair, everyone would have 10%. I didn't include the analysis in here, and we do so much analysis. Like you and I are complete geeks when it comes to this. I've looked at different markets, either the high-end market or hyper-local markets. You tend to find the top 2, either they're targeting the prime or they're targeting a specific geography, will run away with about 30% between them. So there's definitely an advantage of being in those top 3 agencies, that you get much greater market share. And then there's a very long tail of also rans. So it's not a fair world where everyone gets 10%. Actually, you get the champions will get 15% each, and then a decreasing tail that goes down to the 0.2% and runs on forever. As someone gets one listing in one postcode that never operated in before. So you really want to be that top brand, to be in the top 3 recall for the people in your area long before they decide to sell or let their house.
Yeah, love that. And I think, again, we're both fans of 20 EA. Their data from 2023 of 84% of properties that came to market would not want to change estate agents. They're not been on the market for 5 years. So how are you being one of the 3 agents that those 84% of people recall before they come to market? And if you're not doing marketing, again, we'll get onto all those different bits, then you're screwed.
Yeah, and I shout out 28 because they actually helped me with this report. So this report wouldn't have happened without their help. So I mean, I'm massive fans of theirs, and they've been really supportive with getting this report out, because they understand, not everyone has access to the data and insights that we all have access and take for granted. So the idea of supporting this report that goes out alongside their quarterly reports means while they're static, there's tons of really good information there that a good estate agent can use and just go, right, just to benchmark themselves. How am I doing against my peers? I mean, now I know the average. I'm going to get a calculator. So 100 divided by 12 competitors. So above 8% market share, you're doing all right. Below 8% market share, you're not doing all right, and you need to think about what you're doing. And that's kind of the rule of thumb you need to go by, is benchmark yourself against your peers and see how you perform. With media, with MarTech, with PropTech, with AI, with everything, your worldview, is that what's going on out there in your industry? And with the voice of the consumer that's in here, whatever we think as industry professionals who've gone native, what does the person in the street think? Because that's who we're trying to convince. And they're not part of this industry on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And we'll come on to some of the consumer research on the market share thing. And I'm conscious we're doing a classic Simon here, where you go overload on this, but I'll try and segue into everything.
Keep it under control, Simon. Keep it under control, Simon.
You very simplistically, the way you've broken that down in terms of market share, it makes so much sense, and it seems so obvious the way you've just described it to me, but I never thought of it like that. Essentially, yeah, if you've got 12 competitors above 8% market share, you're moving in the right direction. Below that, you need to have a word with yourself, basically.
Exactly. And as we know from the earlier bit, there'll be 2 or 3 who are really running away. They're the ones you need to try and get after, because unless you take them, you're always going to be battling to try and get any kind of market share at all. The top 2 take all the spoils.
Yeah. So true. Again, just thinking of the marketplaces I worked in, the agents I speak with, and they tend to go, oh, it's this agent, and let's say they've got 50% of the market, then it's
Mhm.
all the other people are struggling to keep their head above water with the other 50%. So just in terms of share of market, I wasn't going to do it in this order, but whilst we're here, I want to talk about it. Average agent fee, 1.3%.
1.3%. And I will say, I think the average in the UK from other surveys is about 1.1%. And it's fair to say, while we do everything we can to try and make this really representative, it's a big sample, so it's very statistically robust, but we know it does slightly skew towards, it's a little bit, it's like about, on average, I think the house price for this audience is about £100,000 more than the average house price in the UK. So excuse me, it's not much, it's a marginal skew. So that just pushes the 1.1 to 1.3. But if I just pull up the charts, if you actually look in the market as whole, on one page where we actually show fee by house price, it hovers at 1.1. It is 1.1 until you hit prime, and then it just literally takes off. And because we've got slightly few extra people in the prime space in the data, it just pushes the average to 1.3. And because I have to report the data as the data says rather than massage it, it's 1.3. But if you look at everything up to 600,000, it's 1.1%. So that's two data sources telling what people the average fee is.
Yeah, and so that's what you said there, touched on where I wanted to go on this. And I think David Lindley and I were geeking out on this over WhatsApp the other evening. And again, shout out to 20EA. I very much used their data on this, and you might say, Simon, actually it's differences, but on my workings out, just back of a fag packet, Simon's now got his screen ready to challenge me on it. From what I could see on the 750 plus, where I started to see the fees starting to rise in terms of percentage amount, it looked like 40% of the fees in terms of monetary was in the like 750 above market. So 7% of the market was giving 40% of the fee.
Yeah, so I think it's something like that. But yeah, that's what we're having. We have a massive skew. So I just look at the data here that I've got in front of me was it despite having 17% of the instructions, so the prime bracket we're taking it for £600,000 plus, because that's when the fees start to go up.
Yeah.
So despite having only 17% of the instructions, they secure 46% of the total market value and 55% of the fees. So the prime agent's average property instructions 1.1 million compared to 267,000. So they charge a higher fee on a higher property price, which means they absolutely suck in the fee income. So the super prime, who we class as £5 million plus, they get 0.2% of the instructions, 5% of the total market value, and a whopping 1 in 10% of all the fees. So they have 0.2% of the activity and 10% of the fees. And once I saw that, it kind of blows your mind. And I know David's done something similar with land registry data. Yeah. There's this sweet spot where there's a nice volume value bit, which means you don't need to compete with super prime, but about 600,000 up to about 1.5–2 million, you just make more money. And it's like, and that's hard, you know, and I get it for people in the mainstream. You know, I've worked with lots of mainstream agents. You have to work really, really hard to make money. And life gets, I won't disparage my prime peers, but life gets a bit easier in the prime space in terms of money-making stuff. I know it's not easy. I'm being a bit facetious, but in reality, the finances just wash the face so easily.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had it quite a few times where, let's say an agent gets a property at £1 million and they tend to be selling houses at £500,000, let's say. So they're used to the more 1.1% fees. So what's that, 5.5 grand, roughly speaking. And they get a house at £1 million and they'll go, oh, I'll just do that at 0.75% because 7.5 grand is still 2 grand up on that. And then sharing with them 2023 survey was like, well, actually, the higher up the price points, the percent, not only does the monetary value go up, the percentage goes up as well. So you're doing yourself a disservice.
Actually doing it yourself, and you're actually doing your client a disservice because, you know, the reality is selling as you move up property values, the properties become more unique and a house is worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, now that is true of all property in reality, But if you're in a row of similar houses, you've got to work quite hard to make something different enough to charge significantly more than the average market value for it, with all sorts of additional features. Once you move to a more unique, very prime property, if that is someone's dream house and you can create a competitive market for it with several buyers making a bid for it, it's worth whatever the person says it's worth. It's not like, I know things like some of the automated valuation tools struggle with these unique properties, and that's the art of an estate agency. I know I was being facetious earlier about it's easier at the prime end. Actually, you do need to do more marketing. The brochureware, the marketing of it. You're always going to have a video. You're always going to have the property staged, and you probably will pay some of this for yourself. So, they charge more because they have to do more to make that property optimize its value. And people don't, at that level, they're not buying on price. They're buying on the perceived value of what you will then do for them, because they're probably an expert in their field, but they won't be experts in property.
The expert in their field, they'll buy on value, but just because they I don't know, work in a high-end field doesn't necessarily mean they see the value in your high-end field. So you've got to educate them on it.
My father-in-law is now retired, but he's one of the top professors in cancer in the UK and hematology in the UK. He's brilliant at what he does. Does he have a brilliant depth of knowledge about the property market? No. Why should he? He has a specialist knowledge, has a great life because of it, is well respected, and probably the most cited people I've ever known. But his knowledge is about hematology and cancer. It's not about the property market. So when he does property work, he needs to work with someone who is as good at property as he is at his profession. And as I say, in the prime space, you move into international buyers. All of a sudden, the world of who you're talking to changes significantly, and therefore you want to get more money in, because the counter to my argument is easier. You're gonna have to do a lot more stuff to maximize the opportunity. And if you don't sell, you've done a lot of stuff and got nothing, like with all estate agency.
Yeah, I mean, well, what are the figures from 28 last year? About 53% of properties that came to market actually went on to earn an estate agent a fee. So you think, half the time you're spending money not making anything back from it. So, right, moving on to the next bit, and I think it's like I've got an order here where it might tie in nicely, Simon.
Yeah.
So in terms of saying, so we've said about, getting higher fees. We've said about 12 other agents you're competing with in a patch. We've said about your sort of average consumer recalling 3 estate agents. So again, I think that all comes back to the power of marketing. And from what I read, was it 10.4% of revenue is invested in marketing?
Which, I love it when these things happen. We've just randomly surveyed 841 people. I've stood up on stage at multiple presentations knowing this is the golden rule. You should spend 10% of your income, 10% of your income on marketing. On what does a survey of 841 strangers throw out? 10.4%. It's like, oh, and then when you break it down by every single break in the market, it's still around about 10% with one exception. And it's like, okay, there's something here about the number 10% that we should be really listening to. So if you're spending 3%, you're not investing enough in marketing. If you're spending more than that and you want to grow, there's an argument for that. But 10% is healthy. 10% is a nice, 10.4% to be accurate, is a nice, healthy number to invest in marketing. And it's borne out in all the studies outside the industry as well. So it's a good number to be gunning for.
So I can't remember if I discussed this with you when you were on the podcast previously, but when I was an estate agent, I think the average fee in my office was around £5,000-ish. And from a direct mail perspective, throughout the time that property entered the market, sale agreed, completed, so over 6 months, I had at the back of my book that I didn't know at the time, but I reinvested 10% of that fee into direct mail. And I look back at figures, it's like typically £500 got invested on each property I sold, from, hey, this has just come on the market, this has had a sale agreed, this is just completed. So it's like 3 different direct mail campaigns. And I probably said this in the podcast, but I remember being sat in a boardroom and it came to me first, and it was like, Simon, you're like the smallest office in the organization. You spent the most on direct mail. And I was like, cool, let's just go around the room and just find out what the profit margins are at the end and everything. It's like, oh, that's funny. you're one of the smallest offices, spent the most on direct mail, but you're one of the most profitable. It's like funny that. And you'd have offices who were twice the size of me who spent no money on direct mail and they're losing money.
So I had a very large case study of that at a company. I've worked with several very big estate agency brands, well, often multiple brands. And I remember pulling once the data on, because we had a central supplier of direct mail. And we pulled the data and we basically looked at the amount of direct mail did and how much money they made. Straight line correlation. The most profitable offices did more direct mail. And I remember bringing someone, a specialist, to do it with us, because like, we need to get the offices that aren't doing direct mail to do more direct mail, because literally look at the chart. More direct mail means more money for us, and we want more money. You know, I don't believe direct mail works. Why do you not believe direct? Have you tried it? No, I haven't done it for 10 years. So how can you possibly have determined it doesn't work apart from a prejudice?
Yeah.
And when we tried it, we were able to lift some of our underperforming branches up. And it's like, I mean, from the data, you know, because we asked the question, did you grow last year or did you grow next? Are you expecting to grow this year or not? So decrease, grow, decrease, whatever the ratio is. The growth agents, they kind of spend the same amount on marketing. So it's not about spending more on money on marketing, but they do more marketing. They across more channels, across more social media, and they just do more marketing. So what they've done is they've optimized their marketing mix, and they found the most effective way to do the most amount of marketing to the most amount of people. And guess what was happening for them? They're growing.
Yeah.
The opposite is also true.
So on what you just said, I was having a meeting with a client of mine earlier today, and self-employed agent, and what was it? I think we were talking about 5 market appraisals they'd booked. And it was like, so where have they come from? I think one was a recommendation, one was a banner, 2 were through Valpal, and 1 was a recently sold card. So I was like, so that is marketing across multiple channels. And I said to him, I was like, did any of those come from you sending out generic letters to properties currently for sale? He was like, no. I was like, and one of the things you wanted to kind of talk about was on market prospecting. It's like, clearly that's something that can be improved on because you're not seeing results from it. Or is it that's a very saturated field where there's only a small percentage of properties for sale and every estate agent's targeting, whereas your marketing has, as you've kind of said earlier, is having that sort of brand presence to people before they know they need you.
Yeah, I mean, you came to 30 years of marketing, the course that we'll probably talk about at some point later. We just finished a great one in London yesterday, one of our biggest ones yet. And there's this thing I talk about called propinquity.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a great word. It's a great name for a property company, but you can't have it because it's trademarked. No, it's a word in the English language, so sadly it can't be trademarked. But propinquity is a confirmation bias. And the more familiar you are with something, the more frequently you see a message, the more familiar you are with it, the more favorable you are towards it. The line I often follow that in my presentation is that's why we like our children, because we see them and therefore we're familiar with them, and we feel fate. We decide not to kill them because they're so expensive and annoying. They're not. They're lovely. But you want your brand to be there everywhere, every channel, all the time. So when, you know, Devin Brown, the hypnotist, is very good at this. He gets people to do things that they think are their own mind, but he's subconsciously planted all these messages, you know, everywhere. And you have this as well, I imagine, because I get it, is people think they know me because they've seen me on podcasts, they've seen me on stage, and I've seen me on social media. I'm LinkedIn Leadbetter on social media, seen all the time. And I think that's really valuable because when I start speaking to them, they already kind of know me. My job is to listen, understand them, and make sure that what I'm saying resonates what they need. But the first barrier of stranger danger has already been cut through. So when you're sending out your marketing stuff to the 95% of people who aren't in the market, you're just communicating how you help the local area, the great stories you have. You know, we've talked about this in the previous podcast, so I won't go on too long about it. It's like all the data out there is national or regional. Your job as the local expert is make it relevant. I mean, Christopher Watkins is brilliant on this. He bangs on. People love property. After weather, it's property in this UK. So you take any data and you make it relevant to your community, and you'll be really interesting to people. You know, that's why there's billions and billions of hits on portals, despite there's only 100,000 transactions a month. It's because we love property. So, you know, you just need to be everywhere. And that's half of it. It's like, well, I do one thing, do 20 and do 10% more.
So on something you by the way, I love the stranger danger thing. I wrote that down. Really like that. And actually I had um a phone call on Monday this week. Very quick story, and it's relevant to what we're discussing. I literally have this phone call. I'm like, not got that number saved on my phone. Hello, Simon speaking. And the estate agent's like, oh, hi, Simon, it's XYZ. And I was like, I know that name from social media, but I'm slightly concerned it's not saved in my phone. And I immediately panicked of, is this someone I should know? I said, you don't know me. We've never spoken before. I was like, thank God for that. And she's like, is there any chance you're in London on Wednesday? Because I'd love for you to come do a presentation to my team. And it's like, and I know, like I said in the podcast a lot, and it would have been said on the episode you did before, but watching all of the content online, never liking, never commenting, never messaging, and then literally just that phone call out the blue, and then gone and met them yesterday, and it's like having a hug. Hey, how you doing? Like you already know each other. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I
very
get a
proud.
confidence. I follow everything you say. And it's like, oh, I'm massively flattered by that. But that's what you need to do these days. You know, I mean, it's amazing that I mean to find it. Social media. Um, so I mean, pretty much everyone is on social media, but staggering. Hold on, I mean, it's like 85%, slightly more for growth agents on social media. That means 15% aren't listing is in their top activities.
Yeah. So
What?
so on that. So that was actually one of the next things I wanted to run through. So um there's so much we could discuss here, Simon.
We've got 3 hours. No, we've got until 5.
So on the social media side of things, so yeah, agents kind of saying about generating business. So the way I read it from the most common source to least common, but the main one. So in order, so social media being a top one, then word of mouth, then
Yeah,
direct mail, then email. So
yeah,
I mean, again, social media, those agents who are not leveraging multiple channels on social media need to be doing it. Word of mouth, put something out on socials the other day on this about, well, if you're getting word of mouth business, imagine if you actually asked for recommendations as well, how powerful that would be. Direct mail apparently doesn't work, but it's the third most popular way
yeah.
of
But
agents.
that's interesting because direct mail has one of the highest indexes of growth agents versus non-growth agents. So,
Right.
the growth agents are absolutely using direct mail.
And then the email side, I think a lot of agents are missing a trick there in terms of actually getting people added to it because you own that email. You don't. Social media could go like you think. It's made me think a few times. I think it was only yesterday, didn't Twitter X go down or something? And there's been a few instances where Facebook or Instagram's gone down, and you think, well, it's like imagine if those platforms got removed tomorrow and you've got 10,000 followers, but you never added them to an email list.
Absolutely. And it's like it's really interesting because like I find it interesting what people agents think and what the consumer thinks. So we'll drop word of mouth out because we don't actually ask that in the consumer side of things. But the order there in terms of agents is social media, direct mail, email. That's interesting because if you ask the consumer, it's email, then social, and then direct mail are the top three. Email's number one. And actually, I got some data from Magic Numbers this morning, who basically do a whole bunch of. Dr. Grace Kite is one of the top statisticians in marketing. She runs a company called Magic Numbers. So it's incredibly powerful charts. And they've tracked open rates and click rates on email over 20 years. It's consistent until very recently when open rates on email start to rise.
Okay.
So email has become more effective. And I've seen it in my own data because we track what is the marketing branded communication that would make you purchase something. Email has gradually risen in the 3 years I've been collecting that data. I think because we've got all these spam filters, all these unsubscribe tools now, the emails we're getting are more likely from the people that we want. So if you've got someone's email address and you're producing valuable content, they've already opted into you. We know they love property. And if this goes down, or as Facebook did a month ago, as X did the other day, you can still communicate with your customers. And as I point out, the average person in the UK receives 40 emails. I'd like to get that for you. But the average person in the UK gets 40 emails. The average person, spends 2.5 hours doom scrolling. So yeah, you can reach lots of people easily on social media, but so can everyone else. And if you watch some people's X feed, it's like just scrolling up. There's all these X feeds. Just because you've got one follower and only follow one site, and you get a ping, ping, that's not a lot of people's experience on social media. I can barely keep up. And I'm on it quite a lot because it's a great channel for me to use as well as email.
Yeah. So you said valuable content. So in terms of the content that consumers were engaging in, I had it in order of kind of the top things as being image, short form video, and like quiz kind of things, quizzes and polls. So I
Yeah,
found that really interesting. I mean, short form video makes a lot of sense. Trying to do more of that myself, following conversations we've had before about I actually you were the catalyst to me actually finally putting stuff out on my YouTube channel, and then
yeah.
putting out sort of shorts from a video point of view from podcasts and stuff. But what I found interesting, lower down the list was like how-to guides or articles. And the reason I say that is I see a lot of agents who can quite easily, very like, let's say, Chat GPT-esque, write me an article on 10 top tips to sell my house this spring. And it's like, that was easy. And it's like, well, is that's being efficient, but is it actually being that effective when that, to me, from what I read from the research, was is lower down the list. So it might be harder to create quizzes, short form video, and some nice imagery, but actually that's what the consumers want. Have I got that right?
That's absolutely right. And it's a strategy of and different people will resonate with different things. It's interesting. I was in Notting Hill for this Museum of Brands thing, this 30 years of marketing I did yesterday. And that's quite a tech savvy early adopter community around there. Very one of the most affluent areas in London, very much early adopters and innovators in things. They love how-to guides and infographics. The thing though, if you actually break this data you've just described down to locality, it does move around a bit.
Yeah.
But what I think is really interesting about that, you're absolutely right. Images, images are so powerful. We broke the data down by, and anyone downloads the report can see this, home movers, private landlords,
Yeah.
tenants in Great Britain. I think what's interesting is how powerful images are with home movers, which you think about the quality of professional photography in our industry. And as our mutual friend Elaine Penhall would say, why take a professional photograph unless you've staged the damn thing? Because what are you photographing unless you've made it look good? Ideally professionally, but if not, at least staged, and certainly not with a reflection in the mirror or whatever we're doing. What I found with the how-to guides, landlords index way higher than everybody else on wanting how-to guides. So you've got to adjust yourself accordingly. But I'm a huge fan of lettings agents, despite sort of what my friends think of them. It's like, but lettings is really hard now. The legal framework, you'll get yourself in a horrible. I mean, I'm looking at just now, we're looking at buying an investment property to let out. I wouldn't even consider, man. When I did it 15 years ago, I managed it myself. The letting agents, it was a let only fee. Then we managed it. It was a nightmare. The law wasn't so bad. 15 years later, I wouldn't even dare. I will happily pay the fee for a lettings agent to look after it and do it properly. And what's interesting there is landlords like how-to guides. So the point of doing a how-to guide, and I sort of do this with 30 years of marketing. This is how you do marketing. Isn't it complicated? Why didn't you ask me to do it? And a how-to guide, these are all the things you need to do to be a landlord privately. Or option one, do it yourself. Or option two, I can do it for you. And that long list disappears.
So what you're saying there how-to guides when it comes to letting agents, I think that's so powerful because the biggest market share of lets from 20-year data is open rent, which essentially is a do it yourself. And they're perhaps not seeing value in the knowledge, expertise, etc., from a letting agent. Well, could a letting agent do more about that from a marketing perspective, how-to guides to better inform and educate these landlords? Because I think some letting agents I speak to go, oh yeah, but those open rent ones, they're just cheap landlords. I'm sure some of them are. They just want low fee, but some of them just don't see the value in it, like we discussed earlier. So they're just going down the open rent route. But actually, if you help them with how-to guides, then maybe you're going to get them that way.
So, to take that kind of like the narrative for, I really am trying to understand open rent a little better because their growth is extraordinary.
Yeah.
I mean, they are so far ahead of everyone else in terms of market share now. But there's a great buying agent in London called Igor Griskin, and he says there's 10 things you do when you're looking to buy a property. Number one, phone me. Number two, I'll do the rest.
Yeah.
That's almost what you need to describe as a letting agent. If you use a self-service solution, these are all the things you need to be aware of, or you may go to jail.
Yeah.
Or option two, phone me. We do it all for you. The risk is ours, not yours. And I think that's such a powerful message. So, I mean, the two messages that I want to see more of in our industry is lettings is, and Toby Martin from Bath.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, he's brilliant on this one. I mean, he did a great. He got banned on Instagram the other day for his
Yeah.
great making. I nearly splurted my coffee on my screen when I saw it because he's going to be a TV personality at some point, I'm sure. But the sort of thing he's doing where you represent, and it's from what we call the PASS solution, problem, agitate, solution. When we talk about this on 30 years, is the problem is lettings is really, really, really hard. Solution is we take the pain away and we do it for you. The same with estate agency. We don't make enough of the no sale, no fee thing. I think we all know it's there, but literally, if you use us and we don't sell your house, it costs you nothing but time. It's not commisery.
Yeah.
It's whatever the opposite. Oh, horrible. I hated that campaign. Whatever the opposite of commisery would be, if I can very quickly think of something, it's like it's a really great solution. We don't sell, you don't pay. That's kind of like that's a great deal if you're a home seller. And you're not paying 7% fees like you are in South Africa. You're paying 1.1%, which is insane.
Yeah. I might have this completely wrong, but just the way my brain went in what you were describing on we don't make enough of a no sale, no fee. 100% on that. But what I was thinking was like, when it comes to car insurance, for example, it's like you pay a monthly amount or you pay up front for your car insurance. And then if you're in a crash, oh, by the way, you've got to pay your excess. Oh, and then it's like, hang on, but I'm paying you. I might not have a crash for 50 years. I'm going to pay all that time. Whereas no sale, no fee. Great news. You only pay the insurance policy if I actually get you sold. And you're only paying up the insurance policy if I get you.
It would be like having a car crash and you only pay if you've had a car crash and then you get insurance covered. And it's whatever your monthly premium would be. It's like, I remember talking to one estate agent who wanted me to do marketing on a no results, no fee. And I said, well, on the basis that most of marketing is brand building, it doesn't lead. You're just thinking sales. I'm thinking brand building, and I can't instantly demonstrate the value of brand building, so that isn't going to work for me. Ultimately, what would be really powerful is you could have a subscription service. You subscribe to your estate agent, and when you sell your house, it's free.
Yeah,
that would be the way that would make the model work like insurance. And it's fair to say the insurance companies are quite profitable. So it's only working in one person's favor, I think.
Yeah. Right. So you mentioned earlier about the percentage of people on social media. So just to reverse that, it didn't surprise me that what came up very, very low on preferred channel of contact was phone call.
Yes.
And I think it can be a generational thing, but also like someone phoned me earlier and I saw it come up. I was like, oh, for God's sake, why just WhatsApp me? And then the other thing was 80% of the population are on WhatsApp, I think I read roughly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, they are indeed.
And some of the top performing agents that I've come across, and it has like all my communication is through WhatsApp. Like rarely pick up the phone and speak to them. It's all through WhatsApp. And the very best agents, they've got WhatsApp broadcast lists. or they've got WhatsApp groups between buyers and sellers and stuff like that.
That is exactly, you bring the net. I mean, I literally started David Linney, you mentioned earlier, we're doing something called the Prime Cut, which is basically on the 7th of May, we're going to record a prime version of the voice of the agent. I'm basically cutting the data for just the prime agents to show how it's different. And because there's 3 of us speaking, what did we do? We formed a WhatsApp group, and now we're exchanging ideas in WhatsApp in real time, bouncing ideas around, which means, it takes a second rather than, Chris England from the great company PVS Media, who again have been a fantastic supporter of this report and actually filmed a great panel debate that's coming out next week of the report. We've tried to phone each other for a week, and literally he's been on set, I've been doing an event, I've had all day with a client, I've been doing this, he's been doing that, and we've played telephone. We tried to finally speak on Friday night last week, and we couldn't get a good signal on the train. So eventually it took us 7 days to actually get our diaries to coordinate. And I pointed out to him, it's because we're fantastically important people, and that's why we couldn't get in touch with people. In reality, it's just we're all incredibly busy. WhatsApp takes that friction away. And email, great. It's a more official communication email.
Yeah.
Buyers and sellers are more likely to like that, but it's still the top channel for every type of person in terms of preferred communication. And then you got social media, so Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or WhatsApp is number 1. And then again, that's why I recommend people download the report, because there's some real nuance in there. So when you look at it, direct mail, actually landlords would still quite like direct mail when it comes to this. 31%? No, sorry, 1 in 4 would like direct. They want official records.
Yeah.
So, there's some nuance in there, and it's and not or. Just you want to communicate the way the person you want, who is being communicated with, wants to be communicated with. And if it is someone, landlords do like phone calls. 1 in 10 of them, 1 in 11, 1 in 9 of them like phone calls. But if that's what they want, that's how you should communicate.
And again, going back to like car insurance on what you just said,
Have you just had a renewal? It's gone up or something? Is this a particularly painful subject at the moment?
No, I haven't. Although it makes me laugh that I've lived in 3 different houses in Newport Pagnell. So rented one, bought. So I lived at this end of Newport Pagnell, Simon. So have car insurance. I then moved to this end, and they go, "Oh, your car insurance is going up because you're moving. Why is it going up?" And they're like, "Oh, more claims in that area." Oh, right, okay, interesting. I then moved back to where I was before, where car insurance was lower. It's higher. Why is that? Oh, there's more claims. Well, you said that I was like, you're just making it up. But no, I'm not bitter about it. The thing I was going to share with the car insurance thing was that I have like a box down here and folders where when it comes to like council tax, car insurance, utility bills, I am that person who's like ticking the box saying, please post it to me. I want it, not the email.
I mean, I always have to, because I'm a business person, self-employed essentially, but now it's a business. I always have to ask for paper receipts of everything because I want to take it and put it into a receipt for a thing. It's like some people still want the tangible.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of companies will go, "Oh, we're only digital." Well, great. So you only work with people who want to be digital. What about people who don't want to be digital? They want print. We talk about something on 30 years is that the best companies are market oriented rather than company or product oriented. They start with the customer. What do they want? And then they build their business around the customer rather than expecting the customer to bend to the company. Now, unless you can be really picky, if you can make a lot of money, by just doing it the way you want, it's like we don't deal with these people. Fine, if that works for you. But if you want you're not going to be that excluding. It's not exclusive, it's excluding. If someone says, actually, I don't have Wi-Fi, I do like the tangible, I still buy a print newspaper, give them print.
Yeah.
You know what the customer wants. And you may be able to nudge them to go the way you want them to go, but nudge them, don't make them. Because they'll turn away because they want you to be responsive to them, not just restricted by the computer says no.
Yeah, no, very, very true. So that segues nicely into kind of what consumers are wanting from an estate agent. And the top sort of things I picked out in order were They want knowledge, experience, good presentation, a proven track record, and negotiating skills.
Yeah.
They were like the real big things I saw come up. And I was like, well, are agents doing a good enough job in demonstrating that in their marketing, but they are, the creme de la creme at those things?
No, and I think, people don't. They're just like, we just sell houses. And we
Yeah.
just sell houses. So, it's like, Christopher Walken just says, we just sell houses. It's like, well, hold on. You're obviously working really, really hard to sell houses. But if you actually spent some time to demonstrate your knowledge, show that you rent the sim houses, it's literally like, don't just do sold in your area that is like your house. Because I want someone who's sold exactly. No, I live in a 4-bedroom detached house in a cul-de-sac. When I sell it, I want someone who's sold 4-bedroom houses that are detached in cul-de-sacs because I'll know how they'll maximize the value on this property. Now, it could be a 4-bedroom house on the street,
Yeah.
but the closer you show an example of the house that I live in, if you show me bungalows, if you show me rows of terraces,
Yeah.
this isn't relevant to me. I mean, you're not even considered who I am, and you literally know where I live because you posted me, so you know what my house looks like. So why have we done that? I think it's interesting how the top things are the same. I think agents think customers want more of it. They expect it more. I think the thing is customers aren't thinking about it at all. They're just not on their radar of interest, so they're lower. But the rankings are about the same. Where it gets weird is in the bottom. 28% want a qualify. They qualify with an industry-related qualification. Only 15% of agents think that. 28% of consumers think that. 15% of agents think that. So they want their agents to be qualified
Yeah.
or members of an industry association. 21% of consumers, only 10% of agents. Double again. A good knowledge of tax rules and financial solutions. 17% of consumers, only 6% of agents. So it's really weird how for a lot of the top things where they still are ranked in order at the highest level,
Yeah.
it's lower than what agent thinks. At the bottom of the table, some really interesting things about where the consumer expects it more than the
Yeah.
agent thinks they do. And that's where we get ourselves into trouble, is we think we know what the consumer thinks. And if you read the voice of the agent, it tells you what the consumer thinks. So there's your marketing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 points you need to make. And you hit every single one to demonstrate you know what you're doing and be qualified and be part of a professional body that demonstrates that you've got some sort of experience in selling the most expensive asset.
Yeah, love that. And I'm really glad that you what you've just said there, because hearing what you've just said has made me realize maybe I had a bias in my head of when I've been reading through the report, it's kind of concentrating too much at the top of the list. Those
And
things.
you should, and that's really good because actually that's the big, not the low hanging fruit. That's the big bullseye prize you want to go for. But like me, you're a data nerd, and because I wrote the report, I've really lived and
Yeah.
breathed this to the point where I dream about bar charts. But I went into the real, and also I've seen the data behind this, the crosstabs that I haven't shown people. But what really surprised me, because also we ask about, do people want the industry regulated and agents to be qualified? Massively. They even want them to be DBS checked. Who knew? And influenced by Megan 18 to ask that question. That's quite a dramatic change. But it's the fact that agents don't understand their consumers. And it's in the bottom where we see this difference, this delta between what agents think and what consumer thinks. And it's not just a couple of percent more. And it's a representative sample of 2,000 people. It's twice as much. Expect that. So you might put your qualifications down at the bottom. They're quite important. Put them up.
It's like it's like a classic saying of when you speak to a seller, and let's say, Simon, you're the seller, I'm the agent. It's like, Simon, the buyer's not buying your home, they're buying their next home. And like,
Yeah.
I remember like back in the day doing viewings, and again, just humor me, you're the seller and you're saying to the buyers on the doorstep, oh, we've got the most amazing schools around here. And I'm just like, Simon, shut up. They don't have kids. It's of no interest to them. So yeah,
Yes.
you made me think of those things. And um, I think that's very powerful to, yeah, look at what is it that the consumer wants. So I can't have I'm just kind of mumbling my notes here, Simon, but
That's all right.
something I got written down here was about consumers wanting an agent to be on more than one portal, professional photos, reviews.
Yes. Yes. So it's number one for consumers in terms of, so we ask which of the following service would a vendor landlord need? So it's not they just want it. We
Yeah.
make a really important, it's actually emphasized in the survey with a capitalized need. And so therefore it's it's almost a forced ranking because they're saying they need it. Not
Okay.
they want it, they need it. Number one, you list on more than one portal, followed by professional photographs. And then the third one's quite surprising, reviews and social proof.
Yeah.
So you've got to be getting your Google reviews, your trust pilots, your net promoter scores. We are herd animals and we want to know that people like us, and you said it earlier about recommendation. You know, for me, I'm a massive fan of net promoter score. Would you recommend us or not? If they say they would recommend you, ask them to, because that's complete social proof. You know, we work in an industry that has we're working in an industry that has a perceived low trust,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about that in 1 second. But a friend of mine telling me how great Simon Gates is makes me feel more warm to you because someone I trust has told me about someone in an industry that I don't trust, that there is a trustworthy individual. Just on that trust point, because we probably won't have time to get into a detail, is the ipsos mori, the annual flagellation of the industry moment has always slightly irritated me. It's almost like, do you like MPs? No. Have you dealt with your local MP? Yes. What they're like? Absolutely fantastic. So I turn the question around. If you have dealt with an estate or lettings agent, would you say that you trust them? And it's overwhelming how much trust there is. So, I think Jerry Lyons wrote about this the other day in terms of actually the consumers have a better feeling about the estate agents and lettings agents they know than the mass anonymous, do you trust estate agents?
Yeah. Um,
Reviews and social proof. Reviews and social proof.
so
Put
just,
more than one point.
I mean, yeah, we could, that's just another topic and we won't, I mean, it surprised me that they went more than one portal, but in conversation of time. So you've mentioned net promoter score and reviews, which is something I wanted to go on to. So was it 7% of agents use net promoter score?
Yes. That Simon Well and I were losing our proverbial on that one in terms of like theory with his view agent. The way it makes. So I'm trying to find the page now. The problem with the report is very big. So I apologize to everyone for that. But yes, we did ask, and it is about 7%. And it's like, again, I bang on about this, is Net Promoter Score is not just a piece of research you do once a year, put it on the cupboard and forget about it.
Yeah.
It should be an always on activity that you're doing with, say, 1 in 3, 1 in 5 consumers, if you've got a lot of consumers. Don't do it at every stage of a track show. I don't want to be WhatsApped a net promoter score every time I even breathe when I'm thinking about the agency. But periodically send it, and you should be tracking it all the time. Is it going up? Is it going down? If there's any detractors, the 0 to 6, so net promoter score 0 to 10, 9 and 10 promoters, 0 to 6 are detractors. Really tough score. Then you take the detractors from the promoters, gives you a net promoter score. Anything positive above 0 is good. People, I've got a net score of 1, it's terrible. It's like, no, if you're above 0, people who scored you 9 and 10, just 2 points, are greater in volume than people who scored you 0 to 6, 7 scores. So it's a really tough score to win out. 0 to 6ers, phone them. I'm really sorry something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
We'd like to make it right. Can I send you a bottle of wine or address the situation? Or you then find out David in the office is a complete proverbial unpleasant human being. I'm just saying myself because podcast. I normally can't control myself. I've trained myself doing presentations. I've got to stop using profanities. And the ones who recommend you 9 and 10, ask them to do so. You've so loved our experience. Could we use what you said in the testimonial? Social proof. Would you recommend us? Word of mouth, most powerful form of marketing. And it's like Net Promoter Score should be on all the time, kind of just gather, and you should be using it all the time to do things and engage with your customers, having a dialogue with them, and also ironing out the problems in your business. Because it's normally something that hadn't really thought about that's going wrong that could be easily fixed that make people suddenly move into the passives or the track or the promoter space. So yeah, we should have 85 to 95% usage of Net Promoter Score. I'm a bit of a mission with Simon Well to make that happen.
No, kudos to you, because I think it was something I was familiar with, but then the more and more we've spoken, and Perry Power's a big fan of it as well. I know he does some really good stuff with it. It's made me realize the importance of it, and I might have said it last time, or we might have discussed this off air. Matthew Syed, author of Black Box Thinking.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Backwards Thinking and Rebel Ideas is a great book. He's brilliant. His Sideways series on Radio 4 is really, really good. I strongly recommend listening to that.
So right, coming towards the end now. I mean, there's so many things we've not covered that would have been great, but as always, we just provide so much value, Simon, that we run out of time. That was the other thing, actually, just quickly on this. 75% of agents said they were using like reviews.
Yes,
Like, why 25% not?
I know. It's like only 85% are using social media, 15% are not. It is to me very strange. We've got these gaps of it. It's like well, I won't try and find the page because we're out of time, but it's nearly half of people who are not using AI.
Yeah, so that was one of the bits. Yeah, so 56% not using AI.
Yeah, I know. And growth agents, guess what? More growth agents use AI. I mean, this is the thing that consistently comes out. Growth agents use more marketing. They use more prop tech. They use AI. They have better mental. It's like there is a consistent pattern here of the best agents are doing more of the good stuff and the early adopters of the new technologies coming in. Yes, there's frustrations. So the panel debate we had, which is coming out in a week or so's time, Simon Well made the point is actually the reality is we're all using AI all the time. We just don't know we're using it. It's actually buried behind a system that's doing things for us, probably ironically held together by an Excel spreadsheet somewhere in Texas operating on Windows 98. Probably the whole internet is built on that edifice. But I don't understand why people don't. I'm an early adopter. I mean, so I do understand why people learn this. I will buy things and I will adopt things. I have 4 AI systems running at any one point for myself. I get them to talk to one another. So I get them to argue with one another to come up with the best argument. It allows me to test my thinking because I'm riddled with confirmation biases and prejudices. I want to know what the caucus of the internet says, and then I can form an informed view of what I should do. But ChatGPT rules. But 50% of people say they're not using AI. Literally, it is the best, most amazing thing is it's made up. It's saved me from having to recruit people. I have recruited people now because I've reached a certain size. But I think it put me off recruiting someone for a year because it just did so much work for me.
So just on the AI side of things, so I think 3 of the top things that come up for what were agents using AI for, and it was sort of content marketing images. Just for anyone watching or listening, and this is not like new. I can't remember who I was. Oh, I was seeing an agent actually in Milton Keynes, and I was sat in their office and we're looking at a website, and a blog hadn't been on their website for a couple of years. I was like, that doesn't look great. So I just don't have the time to write blogs, and I literally went on to answerthepublic.com and typed in like UK property market, and one of the most common questions was, can you sell a property without an EPC? I went straight onto ChatGPT and went, can you sell a property without an EPC? Write me a blog on this. And as we both know, 30 seconds later, I said to the agent, there you go. People are asking, and you've
absolutely. A couple of tricks that I train people on this is if you want to do local area guides, you go to Wikipedia, you find a wiki page on an area or a town or whatever, you take it out because it will be accurate. You then put it into ChatGPT and say, rewrite that as an area description in the style of an estate agent. If you want to really get to the point of doing advanced prompting, you basically take a whole bunch of your writing, you put it into ChatGPT and say, analyze my writing style. Now write everything you write in that style. And it'll write more like you. So AI is as good as the prompt. it does hallucinate, but there's real clever tricks you can use just to bypass that.
It,
But a good friend of mine from Countrywide, and he runs a company called Fifth Dimension AI. Johnny Morris, strongly recommends. Actually a great person to have on this program. Actually, they've got an AI tool called Ellie, and it's really good at reading complex documents in real estate, in property. So all the stuff down here in terms of supply chain operations, inventory management, data analysis and insights, which people aren't finding AI to be. I find it incredibly useful, but
yeah.
you need to be quite good at it. Ellie, their system, I don't know how much it costs, but they've signed up with some quite big companies. But again, read their blogs. They're at the cutting edge of what AI is doing in real estate. And it can do so much work for you. And even if you don't like it, it's working for you anyway, if you know it or not.
Yeah. So just on the AI bit there, and I just want to finish off on a couple of lettings bits, but the AI and the growth thing, I've been meaning to say this for a little while now when we've been speaking. So I think it's a bit of an overused kind of cliche or saying these days, but it's like AI won't replace you, someone using AI will replace you, that kind of thing. And then on the growth agent side of things, you've mentioned that a few times, and each time you said it, it made me think of a 15 to 20 branch estate agency that I did a lot of work with when I was at Home Search, and signed up to Home Search, and it was very much broken into three categories, and the third, which were using the system, sending out letters, were the most profitable in that business. And it's like the ones who were not using the system were the ones that were losing money. So it's like there's not an issue, it's not a system issue here. The agents making money are the ones that are using it, the agents in your business losing money are the ones not using it. So you've got an internal issue here of like adoption and
There's two really big studies in this. Octopus basically, it hasn't laid people off because it's growing so fast with the acquisition of Bulb. I think the Bulb they got from when it went pop. They didn't need to take on 150 people, 150 call center people because AI did it. And when they surveyed people, consumers find the AI responses better than the human responses.
yeah.
And the Guardian reported about 2 or 3 weeks ago when they did a study in hospitals and had AI tools basically dealing with patients on a day-to-day basis, just general queries. The bedside manner of AI was better than the medical staff. So, you're right. It's the things coming together. The human creativity and AI is incredibly powerful. But in reality, AI is nearly 1.5 years old in effect since it went massive in November 2022.
Yeah.
Do you remember our first mobile phones? They were bricks and rubbish. Look at them now. The AI we have today can outcompete most people in this country at most qualifications, like around the world, and get first-class qualifications. So it's doing something very powerful. What it isn't good at is original thought. And that's where, we need to train our kids. I got into with Matt Lee at PBS the other day, a podcast the other day. I really got into this. What are we training our kids to do? We should be training them to be creative, as good old Sir Ken Robinson says on Do Skills Kill Creativity. We need the most creative people in the world who sit on top of this technology and use it. So you're right. AI won't change your job. Someone who uses AI will take your job. It's just a fact.
Yeah, very, very true. Right, so lettings.
Yes.
To,
Well,
to
I bookmark.
so a couple of bits on this around I think it was like 31% not getting advice at all. I think I saw.
So this was where 31% not getting advice. Yeah.
Which I found staggering, and I thought that was such a great opportunity for agents to go out and give advice.
And again, a massive difference between what agents think and what consumers say. We should be giving advice all the time. There's a lot of accidental landlords out there who may, through tragedy or luck, come into a property and they're not getting advice. Again, it's content. Landlord tips. You demonstrate. How great an opportunity this is for you, the risks of doing it, and how you are the solution. It's every time I read the point, it's been great talking to you, Simon, because you see things in this, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a blog post, and oh, there's another blog post. I could spend literally, hopefully by we get to 2025, I'll have a team who will create tons of content on it, because every single chart is another narrative, and it's in the differences between what agents think. 80% of agents think that consumers are getting their advice on property from the media, press, radio, and TV.
Yeah.
Only 11% of consumers say that. The biggest difference is in that not getting advice group. A lot of people just aren't getting advice. So yeah, I mean, there's the opportunity, isn't there? I mean,
Well, so that opportunity. So there's a big group. They're not getting advice. Um, you said earlier that landlords want the how-to guides, and the biggest issue, or 48% of letting agents said the issue for them was to find more landlords. Voila.
Mhm.
You've got landlords out there not getting advice. They want how to rent guides. I tell you what, oh, how to rent guides, that's letting legislation. They want guides. Well,
What should I do? What should I
yeah,
do?
I think it's there, isn't it? There's what is it, over 170 pieces of legislation to legally move someone into a property. So
Yeah.
and it's always changing. So there's so much stuff out there. But I think as well, again, you might well correct me on this, but going back to the earlier about content, short form video. Well, again, is there an opportunity for some people who maybe just want to see a short form video on some of that content, or is there a landlord quiz to do?
Yes.
What is the
Yeah.
minimum BPC rating that's needed to legally rent out a property? And see a landlord
Yeah.
answer that, and they go through the quiz, and it says you're going to jail, like you kind of said earlier.
You gamify. You can gamify it.
Yeah.
I mean, the FT does this really well. But I used to work for a startup that profile fast growth startups. We had a test called Run the Gauntlet, and it just for entrepreneurs who were looking for venture capital. It would tell you if you were ready or not. Gave you a score, 12 questions. You ran through it, and it's like you're not ready for investment. This is what you need to do. You can do that in such a way as, do you know this, 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 and this, and this? It can be an ABC test. It doesn't need to be clever programming. If you're mostly A's, walk away from being a landlord now. You're going to go to jail. Mostly C's, you're perfectly qualified to do this. You should be safe. Still recommend let you get a lettings agent. But you're communicating to people. Actually, yeah, as we said before, a lot of risk here, but specific quizzes for specific audiences. It's all about being for the audience,
Yeah.
not being for yourself.
I think for any agents listening or watching to this, just a quick recommendation from me of something to check out would be the Scorecard app by Daniel Priestley.
Yeah.
Was what you've just been describing about putting something out in a certain way. And again, that could sit on a website, it could be on socials, it could be on email, so many different ways, QR code and print marketing, various ways it could be used. The other lettings bit, just a final bit, and then we're going to do a little plug for the 30 years in marketing and your
Thanks,
marketing.
Simon.
Slip me that money later. And the letting side of things, funnily enough, just like sales, the higher up the monthly rent, the higher the percentage fee on the letting side.
Yes, it was really nice because we only really did estate agents last year, which is probably why we got 553. We got 841 this time. It was introducing a proper letting section, but it was fascinating how we knew this was a model that we would see. Sorry, we didn't know, but when we got the data, it was incredibly powerful. The relationship between house price and fee. I mean, it just went up at a certain point. What was really interesting is how sharp it is within lettings, and it's both for lettings, let only, and fully managed. It wasn't like there was anything. It wasn't like I was seeing one picture and then was everything else was just flat. It's like it was the same image, slightly different, but essentially the same image every single sector of the market. The higher value of the property, either monthly rent or house price, the higher it is, the higher the fee. And it just tells where people should be thinking about where their business is focusing, and if they have an opportunity to do some of the more. And it's not £5 million plus. It starts to rise literally from £1,000 a month. From £1,000 a month, it's gradually rising until suddenly it decides to put some rockets on, and at £20,000 a month, £20,000 a month, it just takes off. but it's rising all the way from £1,000 a month. So just people need to bear that in mind. It's a mindset what fee you ask, and if you're delivering value and you're selling value, people won't buy on price.
Well, that's a little snippet right there. That last little golden nugget you shared, Mr. Ledbetter. Right. So 30 years in marketing.
Before that, I kind of got to this because I couldn't have done it without them. I have to shout out. I'm sorry. I have to shout out to my sponsors and partners, the guys at Kerfuffle, Lemon and Lime, Doctor, PBS Media, Proper PR, 28, and someone called Simon Gates. So all of you, all those people, were essentially my distribution partners, and what you did is you got this out to your network. And trust you, I think that's why we got the response we did. So I'm genuinely, to all of them and you, I'm really grateful. And I hope we'll be working together next year I want to get above 1,000 responses. That's my goal, is above 1,000 responses. Now, let's shamelessly plug 30 years.
I'm sure you will get to the 1,000 responses. So right, so 30 years in marketing course. I've been on it. It's absolutely fantastic. I know many others who've been on it and rave about it as well. And as you said, it's got an unbelievable net promoter score. So left this year, we've got Lincoln, Manchester, Portsmouth, Newcastle, and Exeter.
We have.
Cool.
So 30 years of marketing, basically it is literally, I've got stupid amount of qualifications in marketing. I've read all the books, so you don't have to. I've distilled it into 7 hours. As you say, you've been on it. Now, I am in this weird position that I run a course with literally a perfect net promoter score of 100. The moment it slips down to 99, I might have to cry into my pillow a bit, because with 8 events now, we've got this perfect net promoter score. We're in Lincoln on the 22nd of May. We're in Manchester on the 26th of June. We're in Portsmouth on the 17th of July. Newcastle on the 18th of September. 30th of October, we're in Exeter. And in November, we're going to be in Cape Town. So you want to come to Cape Town, you're welcome, but you have to pay for the flights. So yeah, we've moved around the country. So we've done it in 8 locations already. We've got another 5 to go. At some point towards autumn, we'll start asking people, where do you want us to go in 2025? Because we're going to just keep taking this on tour around the world, around the United Kingdom, hopefully around the world at some point. And what we've also done, which we talked about earlier before we started recording this, is we get a lot of requests to say, I wish this was 2 or 3 days. You know, there's so much in this that it's like, you know, people do. I mean, I've got some great posts there saying I've literally taken 3 ideas back today that are going to change my business entirely. That to me is a result. Take one thing away, it's been worth a day. But what I put together in August, which is normally our furlough month, is we're going to invite 5 or 6 people who express an interest, come and spend 3 days in a spa hotel in Hertfordshire with us. And I want them to have done 30 years in marketing first, because they'll understand the principles of marketing. But we break it down, but specifically about their business. They get a really detailed audience profile, either B2B or B2C, doesn't matter, of who their audience is, what they own, consume, think, what media they like, what they respond to, the stuff you see in Voice of the Agent, but for your audience. And then we start wargaming and game storming kind of ideas of what you should do with your marketing. But by the time you leave on the 3rd day, you have a fully formed marketing plan for the rest of 2024 and the whole of 2025. And hopefully the discipline will then be in 2025, in August 2025, they start planning for 2026 and get ahead of the game. So we don't want to be more than 5 or 6 people, because it's going to be really in depth. We're going to try and find very non-competitive types of people. There'll probably be people from different sectors as well, but business leaders are going to bounce ideas against each other in a very constructive area, tear others' ideas apart. You go, you could write this and write that, and therefore the wisdom of the crowd, a senior crowd, means you're going to walk away with the best marketing plan you could ever have had. I had a nice day in a nice spa hotel in Hertfordshire.
Yeah, very nice. Very, very nice indeed. So so one bit actually I just want to ask you, when I came to do the course, it was roughly what, a 50-50 split of people that then took you up on the follow-up session. Has that changed at all?
No, and actually we made a decision. So that's an interesting thing you said. Yeah, so it's right. We found, as a rule of thumb, half of people, when they were offered free consultancy, wouldn't take it up. So we offered an hour for free afterwards to make the data really personal for you. Half people did. What we've now done is said we've reduced the ticket price, actually. So we took the ticket price down a bit and actually said, You can buy our consultancy up front if you want it as an extra £99, or if you want to buy it after the event, it's £199, and you can do the hour consultancy, because it just means people will be more committed.
Yeah.
And as you, I sit there waiting for these things to ping into my Calendly, and half of them don't. It's like, okay, I've moved on now. So the option's still there. People are part of an alumni group, they're part of a WhatsApp group, they're part of a LinkedIn group, they have my number, they can ask questions. But they want to really get into an hour where they make that 30 years of marketing to a really detailed analysis of their business. They pay for a slot, they get an hour with me, and we will normally solve whatever marketing problem they have.
So the reason I asked that, and I promise for anyone listening, watching, Simon needs to go as well.
Right.
The reason I asked that, and I'm going to struggle to find what I wanted to say now. Here we go. Right. So we've talked a lot of data. We've talked a lot of information on this, which is great. However, that's one thing. And the reason I just asked you that question, Simon, is it's about doing something with it now. So the people who are listening and watching, don't just make loads of notes and go, that was great. Actually go and action and implement. So a couple of things I wrote down the other day. You actually don't need more information. What you need is more action. Information is cheap and action is expensive. So instead of focusing on just gathering more and more information, ask yourself, how can you take some tiny action against the information you already have?
Absolutely. I think that's a really nice one. I hope that's going to be a blog post or something that's going out in the near future if it hasn't already, because that's really wise words. The reason why we did the voice of the agent is we're an industry of lots of SMEs and solopreneurs and self-employed people. They don't have time or the resources to do the stuff that some of the big brands do. And I know from the research, actually, the one national brand that is the most highly recommended is made up of lots of independents. So there's something about the independent agent that does something, the self-employed agent, that is a much more personal service. And I have lots of friends in the corporates, and they're very good agents too. So there's lots of good individuals, but something about the corporate environment flattens the service. Whereas if it's your own business or a small business, you have to serve. And the reason why I got unchained, I stopped being chained to big brands, is so I could help smaller businesses that are more entrepreneurial. The voice of the agent puts a whole bunch in. Set aside 3 hours, grab a coffee or a glass of wine, sit down, read it, make a shed load of notes, and decide to do 12 things over the next 12 year, over the next year from the report. One a month, focus on it. If you look at that list and go, I'm not doing any of this, but the report says the growth agents are, start doing that. If it's direct mail, I would always recommend they talk to you, Simon. If it's email, there's experts, I would recommend that. If it was a PR, might not be able to afford him, but have a chat with Russell Quirk. If it's content, talk to Christopher Watkin or Jerry Lyons. There are so many good people out there who will happily give you half an hour just to chat to you. Do you think? I mean, Christopher Watkin says, phone me when I'm on my morning walk. He gave me some great, I got a troll. I've arrived, I've got a troll. He gave me some great tips on how to handle a troll. There's lots of solutions out there, but write down the 12 things, make a plan. Don't try and boil the ocean, but do something. Don't walk away and do nothing. Don't read the report and go, that was nice, and then carry on as you are, because that's not going to get you into success if what you're doing is not what the growth agents do. I call it eumemesia, the word I created, invented for the whole thing, which means imitating the best. And what the report says, growth agents do this. So do that, and life will get better for you.
There you go. Lovely. Well, thank you again for coming back and being a returning guest, Simon.
Super. Always a pleasure, Simon. And we're going to be talking together on the 8th, aren't we?
We are indeed. So yes, so that's something else. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for something that Simon and I are recording on the 8th. So that'll be coming out soon as well. Won't say too much about that now. We'll keep you in suspense.
Secret squirrel at the moment.
Yeah. But no, it's been absolutely brilliant, and no doubt I'll have you back again in the future. But yeah, that just leaves me to say once again, thank you very much for being an amazing guest, Simon. Appreciate it.
An absolute pleasure, Simon. I look forward to talking again. Take care.